Well, thanks for doing this, Olly. Cool. So you were just saying that you just came from a jiu-jitsu session.
Did 10th Planet, shout out Diesel. They're not
Yeah.
my home gym, but I train over there on Saturdays, a leg lock specific class. So if you're in the area, go over there because they're good people.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking just before we started this actually about you doing different martial arts in different places as well. Have you ever tried Sambo, by the way? Because it sounds like wrestling and...
Do you know what? It's funny. I just said to you yesterday I was up in Doncaster, right?
Yeah.
If I was there in time, I was gonna do a session at Doncaster Sambo Centre, and it's something where I started doing a bit of judo, to do Sambo classes and stuff. So I haven't, is the short answer. I've sparred with Sambo guys, but I haven't done specific Sambos, but I probably will be in the near future.
You obviously always see this thing with like the Dagestani guys, you know, and I think it was Islam Makhachev that said sort of, what was it? Oh, if jiu-jitsu was, you know, if Sambo was easy, they'd call it jiu-jitsu, something like that, yeah. How do you find it, like, in comparison to jiu-jitsu?
Wrestling, to me, is king of sports.
Yeah.
Freestyle wrestlers are the best sort of athletes I've been around. Now, you can get that in sort of judo, Sambo, not as much jiu-jitsu in terms of athleticism. It's not the same. It's not the same. But grappling arts from the feet, it's more on the individual. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you get a top guy at all of them, they're all the same.
So, what specific martial arts are you? I know you do obviously a bit of MMA in general, like genuinely mixed martial arts. You do train in a lot of different ones. So, what is it? Jiu-jitsu, judo. You do a bit of boxing. Obviously, you had that spar with Carl Froch.
Yeah, background was boxing. I had 12 fights as a boxer before I did anything else.
Okay, nice.
So, I say that I did some Muay Thai as a kid, younger than that, but I was like 10. So, like, I was really young.
So you started with a striking martial.
Then I did boxing as I got sort of in my teens and stuff like that. But then I got a bit older and I just started doing jiu-jitsu. So I did jiu-jitsu. And then from there, to be honest, I've just got one of them minds. If it works, I want to use it. Do you know what I mean? So I've done, I've trained in Thailand with Muay Thai, all that kind of stuff.
I'm to do that.
And I like learning martial arts. And you mentioned judo. Recently, I was lucky enough to get some training with Ray Stevens.
Yeah.
So Ray Stevens was silver medalist in judo at the Olympics and a great teacher as well.
Yeah.
So just started judo. So, hopefully we go on that ride too.
It's a great one. I mean, they really say it's a great martial art to learn, not just for MMA and things like that, but also for street self-defense. You know, people wearing clothes, jackets. I feel like it's probably going to be different depending on what gym you train at, but I feel like sometimes where I used to train, they kind of lacked the takedown element of it. We didn't do that many stand-up judo throws.
Yeah.
So I feel like being able to combine the elements of jiu-jitsu when it hits the ground with the actual throws and the takedowns is pretty nice. But one thing I always like to get to know when I'm starting doing these things, and it has been a recent journey, me starting to do this, but what was it in the first place that sort of got you into martial arts? What was it? Because I feel like there's always different things for different people. Sometimes it's bullying, sometimes it's a sense of direction, sometimes you just want to get fit and you want to do something. What was it for you that made you want to say, you know what, I want to try martial arts?
Yeah, I was just as a kid fighting at school and that, you know what I mean? I was from a time and a place really where, it was kind of a regular thing at school. Nothing crazy. I'm not talking about knives and guns or anything, but, scrapping in the playground, I guess. It was not really too much of a conscious thought. It was more just, that's what I wanted to do. And then when I started boxing, I was lucky at the place I'm from, South London, Elsfield, just happened sort of probably a mile from where I was living, had one of the best boxing clubs in the country. So I was like, that wasn't by choice. It was just a local boxing club to me that I went down to, and I started doing it. And it was always for the reason to box, you know what I mean, to have a fight. And it just went from there. And then as I got a bit older, my mind's quite curious and sort of, I've realised boxing weren't going to save you in everything. You know what I mean? I've done a little bit of sparring. I think I've mentioned this on my podcast before. I won't mention names for obvious, what I'm about to say next. But I did a bit of striking sparring with some MMA guys that were around where I was working. And they were very low-level MMA guys.
Yeah.
So I was sort of doing well on the feet. And then they wanted to do some grappling. I jumped into that. But they weren't that good at that either. So I was kind of still in that as well. Yeah. And it just went from there. Yeah, exactly.
Did you find that, like, when you started actually training in martial arts, did you find it sort of helped in other areas in your life in the sense that, like, it stopped you maybe from getting into, or not so much?
Not really, to be honest, because I say I was a boxer, so I never looked at it like martial arts. There was no sort of martial
There
way.
wasn't that sort of code or whatever,
You know what I mean? So I don't know if you've ever been in like a boxing gym where people are getting ready for fights. It's like,
it's quite
environment. You know what I mean? It's a boisterous environment, especially then. Like I've said that before as well. Like at the time, there was only one woman in the class, in the club, and she would have been less than 50 kilos. So when she was doing her rounds of sparring, it was with like men and like having to just make do, and they was playing light and whatever. So it was a very male-dominated area. It wasn't like we're all on this journey together. We was all in there for a tear-up, really,
It's funny you mentioned that actually, because boxing was my first martial art. You know, I know we just said it doesn't have the code and stuff, but you know, it's a combat sport.
Yeah.
Like, it was my first one as well, and I remember the coach didn't allow. And it's crazy to see how much times have changed and progressed. Because I remember at the time he didn't allow girls to train.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that.
I think he saw it as a distraction. You know, there's teenage boys. You know, there's all that kind of stuff.
He's got a point.
Yeah,
From that point of view. Really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's crazy to see how far we've come in that way.
Yeah.
Now you do go. You know, sometimes you train and you're like, oh, actually, there's more girls in this class than there is. You know, and that's obviously great to see, because one thing I've always said and kind of felt is that I kind of think most people, if not everyone, should do some form of martial art and combat sport, because I think it does help, you know, in a lot of ways. I mean, certainly for me, but I think in other people that I've talked to, it can help you think, you know what, I'm not going to get into this situation. I was reading a book called The Gift of Violence, and he was talking, and he's based in Portland, Oregon in the US. He's a jiu-jitsu coach. I think he was the founder of SBG, so he taught, you know, what's his name from Ireland? Kavanagh, yeah, who, you know, taught McGregor and things like that. But he's based over there anyway, and he wrote this book, and I read it recently, and he was specifically making this point that he thinks that training in these things can help you avoid these situations. It was quite interesting because the way that he puts it down is that most street fights, or however you want to call them, are based on ego. Oh, I cut in front of you in the line. Or I stare at your girl for too long. Or so now I feel like I need to prove a point now. I need to prove to show that I've, you know, my masculinity is not endangered. You know what I mean? And his argument is that actually if you train in those things and you know, well, actually I compete and I spar with world-class fighters or guys, I don't feel that same sense of, I don't know if you've ever felt that at all, or if you've, like, how do you deal, because I know that, you know, like every human being, you know, you're going around daily life, you must come across situations where you think, fucking hell, am I going to have, how do you navigate that?
Well, to be honest, I think it comes down to personality, and I think a lot of people say that, don't they? Oh, the more you get into martial arts, the less you want to have a street fight. I think it's a load of nonsense, to be fair, because I think it's personality based. You know what I mean? Suddenly, you know, you don't start martial arts and become some monk with the wind, and you know, like you're calm now. Like you're still gonna have road rage, you're still gonna have all the things. So again, I think it comes down to personality, but the reality is as well, a lot of people that say these things, I don't know this guy specifically, and if he's training them guys, he probably doesn't fall into this category, but the reality is most people have never had a street fight in their life. They talk like they have, and they think they, you know, they know what they're going to do, but most people have never had a street fight. But like, how many people that are grown adults in the modern sort of society have actually had a proper fight on the street where you know...
less than 1%.
Everyone talks tough, don't they, and whatever. Chael Sonnen said this as well, and he's from Portland, funny enough. He said, do you remember the toughest guy in your school? And people go, yeah. And he goes, how many times do you see him have a fight? Like, never, because no one tested him. You know what I mean? So it's like, there is an element of that, I think. So, but to answer the question, I think it's personality based. I don't think doing martial arts or not doing martial arts has much, if any, bearing on it.
It's interesting you say that, because on the personality thing, I remember, and I can't remember who he was talking to, but there was a sort of a clip where Joe Rogan was talking to someone, and I think the guy, and by the way, no disrespect to like Aikido, for example, right? Because, you know, but this guy was trying to push Aikido and stuff, and I think Rogan was basically saying, listen, it's a bullshit martial art. And he was like, well, you know, it's going to get you out of a situation with the average person, and Rogan was like, but there's a lot of skilled guys, kind of like what you're saying, they might know how to fight, but they might still go to a bar on a Friday night and think, fuck, I've got the power to knock someone out, and I will tonight.
Well, do you know what? It's funny. I've seen the clip. I know. I also train a black belt in Aikido. Like grappling.
Right. How do you find that?
I mean, it's a waste of time. Like, you might as well have gone and played badminton. Do you know what I mean? Like, not to knock him, but he's and he knows that's why he's training with me, right? But it's like, if you said to me you got a black belt in Aikido, the famous line, I think it was Chael Sonnen again, actually, I'm double quoting him today, but I think he said, I got a free tour in my Happy Meal once as well.
It's funny because I do feel like that, you know, almost the sparring element, the testing element of, I actually had a conversation recently. I interviewed a guy called Ricky Warren. Now, his background
I've met Ricky.
Do you know him? Yeah, he's kind of calisthenics.
Yeah.
And we spoke recently, and I can't remember how we got into it. I mentioned, I think, jiu-jitsu, and then he made the point of, this is where I want to differentiate, you know, sort of combat sports from martial arts. And he was sort of saying that he didn't think jiu-jitsu was that effective, which was surprising to me, because I think in the street situation he meant, which was surprising to me because obviously, you know, we know that the Gracie family, I mean, Hoist literally won the first UFC when there was barely any rules, using only that.
That's the thing, like with people that always say, oh, jiu-jitsu wouldn't work on the street. There's two parts to that, right? Firstly, it's from someone who doesn't know how to grapple, right?
Yeah.
The thing is this, oh, you don't want to go to the floor if you're in a street fight. Fair.
Yeah.
But what if you are on the floor? Do you want to not know?
You need to get out.
Right?
Man.
Do you want to not know? Do you want to like, I didn't bother learning that because I don't want to be on the floor. But now you're on the floor.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And it's all right saying multiple attackers. That's great. But what's not learning jiu-jitsu going to help you with multiple attackers as well?
Right.
That makes sense.
It's just an extra tool that you can have that can get you out.
And to me, anyone who'd say jiu-jitsu doesn't work on in a real situation has never had a real spar with them.
Right,
And if they have, it's with a low-level person that hasn't taught them a lesson. Because if you're on the floor with a grappler who's, let's say, black belt in jiu-jitsu,
you know,
you're not doing anything.
I was explaining this to someone. It's funny because, you know, when you sort of talk about these kinds of things to people that aren't interested in martial arts, trying to explain to them what it feels like when you're grappling a high-level grappler, whether it be jiu-jitsu or wrestler, trying to explain to them what it feels like. It's different to almost boxing, you know, a high-level boxing in the sense that you always still feel like because you're on the feet, you still think, oh, I can maybe land one. But genuinely, when you are against a high-level grappler, you feel powerless.
You can't do anything.
You feel like you can't do
And we'll say about jiu-jitsu on the street is, oh, I can bite you and I can poke you, no, I can kick
Right,
you.
that's,
It's like, well, the jiu-jitsu guy can do that to you too. Do you think he's bound by the rules?
It's
Like, if it's street rules, what do you think? You think he's going for a clear rear naked choke? Or do you think as he's doing it, he might bite your ear off with an elbow?
It's funny because someone said that recently as well. It was like, oh, if you can't beat us with rules, what makes you think that you can beat us without
100%.
rules? I remember when I was at uni, they were sort of doing this Krav Maga thing. There was like a Krav Maga place. Now, I know Krav Maga gets a very mixed reputation in terms of, you know, what people think about it. And I thought, you know what, let me check this out. So I went down there and, you know, there was the sort of stuff that you can expect, you know, kicks to the balls, you know, the eye stuff. And I remember specifically one of the guys there saying, yeah, you know, and this is why I do this and not, you know, because we can do that. We can do the kick to the balls, the poke. And I thought, oh, okay, right, this is his way of thinking. And it's funny because, and I think this was the first post I ever put when I started my channel, but it was in April 2019. I was suddenly genuinely attacked out of nowhere. Now, I say that, but, you know, according to Gavin DeBecker, and he wrote a book called The Gift of Fear, he actually made the point that when people say, I was attacked out of nowhere, suddenly, they use those kind of words like I just used. He says, actually, when you look at the signs, when you replay the moment leading up to that, the signs were there, you just missed them.
Yeah.
Now, when I think back to that, I think, wow, it was so like out of nowhere, so sudden that I almost didn't even have time to register. You know, like if you're in a gym or you're in a boxing gym or in an MMA gym, it's like, oh, we're sparring now, touch gloves, think, you know, and your brain is sort of ready for this kind of situation. But when it sort of happens like that, you don't even have the time to process. The only thing that I will say from the Krav Maga point of view is it helped in terms of awareness. Because they sort of are very good on that whole, oh, I see a threat, or I see, probably because it comes from a military. But I think in terms of skills, when I've spoken to a lot of, you know, actual combat sport practitioners, they're not a big fan of Krav Maga. What's your take?
For the most part, yeah, definitely. And I would have thought that before, but I've got a training partner who does jiu-jitsu, Claudius, Krav Maga London, and training with them. I've done a bit with them. I've taught at one of their seminars with grappling specifics and stuff, and it's great. But Claudius is one of them that he'll learn everything. He'll go and train in Thailand, Muay Thai, and he'll hone his skills. He'll go and do boxing, jiu-jitsu, brown belt. You know, he's an animal. And it is very, like, from my understanding, there is a lot of that aggression and implying, right? But if you ain't got the skills to back it up, what's the point? You know what I mean? And like going to his school, a lot of them guys are, man. Like, there's jiu-jitsu ranked people, and like they've done boxing, they've done this. So there's Krav Maga schools and there's Krav Maga schools.
Yeah, they're very different.
Because I've seen some Krav Maga, should say, not done it. And you know, like around it, and then you go, yeah, good luck, man.
Yeah.
But then, like, if I introduce you to Claudius and say, go and have a spar with him, it's like,
you'll
we're in
find
trouble, boys.
Yeah, you find out. And you're completely right. I feel like it does depend on the school. I mean, I've seen some where, you know, I've seen them also hitting mitts and stuff, and I'm like, oh.
But I've done some stuff like back in the day. I've been around, like, I've done all kinds of martial arts, like certain elements of like Chinese martial arts.
Like what, like Sanchu, the kickboxing?
Bagu, something, Baji, whatever. I don't know what it was called. Someone might be able to help us out.
Yeah,
I'm butchering it, just making noises. But some of that I go, yeah, come on, man. Firstly, you don't spar. Secondly, it goes back to what I was saying. I'm not criticising anyone. I'm looking around the class, the instructor, the everything, and going, None of you've ever had a real fight, so how do you know any of this works? Answer, you don't, because
Yeah.
it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
The martial artist and all that, where it's like, it ain't gonna work. But now spar properly, and there's no rules, and I'm gonna try and punch your head. Let's see, ready, go.
Yeah.
Boom,
And that's exactly it. Like, it's when you test it against a fully resisting. I remember I had a mate back in the day who did the Kuksul One. It's like a sort of Korean martial art. Yeah, shout out Kuksul One, but it's a Korean martial art. I think it's similar to Taekwondo, less flashy kicks, but with some locks and things like that. Anyway, I think we were like 17 at the time. And he would say, okay, right, well, this is what I learned today. Grab me here. So you'd grab him and he'd say, no, don't grab me like this. Grab me like that and stuff. And then you think, all right, but in a real situation when things are happening fast, and so they're not going to grab you the way that you want to, you know what I mean? And I think that's why it's so important when you're actually doing martial arts that you can test under stress, even if beyond sparring, you actually compete, someone that you don't know, they do something that you've never seen before, you know what I mean? You have to react in that. You know
well, it's the competitive arts are the ones because you spar.
Yeah.
You have to, but it goes both ways too. Like like I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, right? But there's certain jiu-jitsu people that are deluded with jiu-jitsu. Now, if they're grappling, of course, they're going to fucking kill you. But at the same time, they don't, some of them, not all of them, of course, but some don't realise how vulnerable they are to strikes. Now, you have to be a certain level of grappling to be able to strike that person on the floor before they rip your arm or leg or neck off, right? But at the same time, there's certain positions where you might be a lot better than me at jiu-jitsu, but if I'm enough to stop you submitting me quick, there's openings here.
Yeah,
and that's what I think is, again, I say the jiu-jitsu delusion in that sense, because it's not clear cut, you know, like MMA is the testing ground. Let's be honest. And then you get these idiots as well, oh, it wouldn't work on the street. And it's like, okay, good luck. Fight John Jones on the street, then come back and tell me how it went for you, and we'll have a proper discussion.
And I think you always see that whenever you see a boxer or like a pure kickboxer go, you see those gaps immediately. You know what I mean? Like when James Toney, one of the greatest boxers of all time, at his weight, straight away when he went in, you need that element.
But there's things as well, like it works both ways, because like a boxer could absolutely beat a jiu-jitsu guy on the street.
Right.
But it's not going to happen most of the time.
No.
But it don't mean it can't happen. Do you know what I mean? A jiu-jitsu guy doesn't know how to defend a punch any better than a boxer knows how to defend a choke. Right. It's as simple as that. Now, there's more likely you're going to get tangled up and then the boxer's dead, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I think this is for me, you know, I quite like Jeff Chan's approach. You might have seen his channel. He goes around different places. He's always sparring. He's always trying to learn from different people, like different martial arts. And I quite like that approach now. I think maybe it would still be nice to compete. I'm 34, so it's got to be done now, or, you know, at a certain point, then it starts to become... Funnily enough, we were just talking about Ricky earlier. He just made his Muay Thai debut at 40 pro. And he was saying that you've kind of got to really be in your 20s or in your late teens to start to then take.
But there's an interesting point, and this is not to knock Ricky at all. You know, I don't know him well. I've met him, you know, whatever. Is that one of the reasons that he'll go jiu-jitsu doesn't work on that? Because he's thinking that it's too late. Do you know what I'm saying? There's an element of, because, and this doesn't relate to Ricky necessarily, but there is definitely a mindset out there of people that push things away because they don't want to spend 10 years getting good at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, funnily enough, actually, I just came across a channel, I think it was like Paul Reed, MMA, and his whole thing was, I made my debut at 35, and, you know, and he's like, late 40s, early, and he's still there competing. Of course, you know, it can be done for sure. I think maybe he was coming at it more from a scientific, physical perspective where recovery doesn't. And you know, and obviously I think that's not maybe even him saying that. I remember Kamaru Usman saying he felt the difference in recovery from his 20s than even in his mid-30s. He started to feel that difference. Strategic.
But I wonder as well, because I've gone through periods, and as I've got older, I felt better. I find that it's elements of damage too, and recovery and all that kind of stuff, because I know people, and I'm sure you do as well, and myself, I've got no problem training 2 or 3 times a day.
No?
No problem at all. Just
How old are you, can I ask?
25.
Oh, 25?
Camera's on, bro. 25. Slow down. You watch out. No, I'm 35.
Okay.
So,
right.
But I feel better than I've ever felt. So I don't feel any difference.
You don't feel any difference?
Nothing. And now I feel like part of that, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, when you really go deep, as you get better at things, you become more efficient.
Yes.
So you're not wasting energy too.
Yeah.
Like when I teach, whatever it is, whether striking, grappling or whatever, adults that are beginner level, I say beginner level, less than 2 years experience, right? As sort of a number. It's not that clear cut. Some people after 6 months are really tasty. Some people in training for 10 years and they're still used to it. But efficiency comes into it. If I start training someone who's 40, who's done like bits and because that's the common one. People say, I've done bits and pieces over the
Yeah.
years, right? They've done boxing here and there, but they've never committed, right? These kind of people, it's efficiency.
Yeah.
But they're stressed out after a round. And it's like, listen, as you get better, you chill. You use less energy, you know, and this is a big one with grappling too, because grappling's more of a learning environment than boxing. Sometimes you're in the gym, you're having a fight. Whereas in grappling, you can afford to let someone dominate you. And even if you don't let them know they're dominating you, don't let them know you're letting them do it, right? They're dominating, but you're playing your game.
You're playing,
You don't need to care. But as you're sort of, let's say if you're sort of blue belt level, from my experience anyway, is like, you do care. You don't want to get ironed out all the time. But as you get more experienced, and it's like, no one cares what you did on a Wednesday lunchtime. Do you know what I mean? No one cares what happened on Saturday 4 years ago. So you can afford to play, I'm looking after this. I'm not going home.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I remember when I was at like the pure jiu-jitsu gym, I remember one time the coach just randomly said during a sparring session, he was like, guys, I'm looking around and like, some of you are like sparring like you're in the sort of, you know, in the, like, if someone's got you in submission, tap. Like, this is training. Why risk, as you say, hurting you? And maybe for some people, maybe it is an ego thing and they're like, no. But actually, when you hear people like Gordon Ryan or even Craig Jones say, actually, I've tapped hundreds of times in training, and it's a part of the journey. I think that's why I like, because you use the word play, I like the fact that it does feel like a game. You're playing, you're trying to, as you said, sometimes with boxing, particularly my amateur club where I trained up in Chesterfield, some of those spars felt like a fight. You know what I mean? And I was just as nervous as, you know, because I'm thinking, Christ, I'm going to get, you know, and I actually did get flattened by one of my sparring partners, and, you know, and I was thinking, my God, like this isn't even happening in a fight, and he's just flattened me here. It was like hard, intense rounds. In Muay Thai, though, sometimes it's a bit more, it can be a bit more playful, because I think they acknowledge that that's actually how you learn. If you've got a new beginner, and you see this all the time, and someone's there and you're going at 90, 100% power, like that guy's not going to learn. He's just going to shell up and he's going to get scared. And, you know, if you can make it a little bit fun and work their way up, you can actually find that they start to learn. And then maybe you make that agreement, you know, because even there's a kickboxer called Gabriel Varga, and he says one of the things he doesn't like is when people switch up their energy in sparring. So if maybe someone says, hey, I want to go hard this round, just giving you that warning, okay, I know. But if you're starting and then all of a sudden someone then hits you with he was like, I don't like that. You know what I mean? And he was like, but the tricky thing is, how do you then bring it back down once it escalates? So have you ever had that where you've had to...
Let's say boxing. Like boxing's more, you don't learn an awful lot going in. It's sort of like the tough guys, and if you're there long enough, you learn a thing or two. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of people just leave before they start. Whereas jiu-jitsu is not that vibe. You go in and everyone's a beginner at one point. Some people are better than others, obviously. But like, you get taught jiu-jitsu. You don't necessarily get taught boxing. You kind of go in there and like pick it up. You know, it's a little bit different. But like with the sparring and ties and stuff like that, I think a lot of the reason there's elements of that, but it's also they're looking after their legs and things. You know what I mean? If you get kicked in the leg, plus also actual Thais fighting in Thailand, they're fighting to feed their family. They're fighting every other week. So
they can't afford to get,
But also my experience in Thailand too, this is where I put it together, is like when I've sparred out there, the Thai sparring is light and playful. The boxing sparring is hard. They put the gloves on, they're no kicks, they're punching your head hard. You know what I mean? And I think it's just a mindset of a sport, and you kind of take it on. But the other way to do that is like, I don't care what you do. If I want to work on my jab, I'll work on my jab.
Even if the other person's going heavy.
You thump that jab on them, go heavy with them, just protect yourself, look after it. And to be honest, that's how you get better to me. I mean, like work on you, like, I don't care what you're doing, I'm going to work on my jab.
Yeah. Do you change your like, you know, because sometimes, again, one of the things he does that, and I sometimes watch those videos, is he watches other people spar. And he's like, this guy's quite big, and he's sparring either a guy that's way smaller or a woman, and he's not really sort of reducing his power enough for his liking kind of thing. How do you do that? Because sometimes I feel, though, like if you do it too much, it can almost come across as a bit disrespectful, and they feel like, well, you're going light on me just because I'm a woman, and they might not want that. How do you sort of approach?
Well, it depends what's in front of you, first of all. Is it just a hobbyist or is it a fighter?
Right.
If it's a fighter, of course,
you can go harder.
That respect thing comes in. If they're not. But also, you can up it with speed, right?
Yeah, without actually...
Do you know what I mean? Up it with speed, or so put it on them with pressure. You don't have to hit them hard, but pressure, whatever. There's a million ways you can do it. Like, I've said this before many times, is like, I'm lucky with the size of me, because I'm kind of big enough and small enough, right? Do you know what I mean? I've had like sparred heavyweights, sparred like bantamweights and stuff.
Yeah. How much do you weigh, by the way?
Right now, probably 82-ish, something like that. But like, do you know what I mean? Big enough and small enough.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can give them a workout. Now, listen, if you're a heavyweight, I'm not your number one training partner.
Yeah,
You ain't gonna-
yeah.
But at the same time, I can go with like a guy who weighs 9 stone, whip it.
Right.
And it's not
right.
too small that I can't get something from it. Again,
Yeah.
if that's all my training partners, then it probably is too small. But you see what I'm saying? It's like
yeah.
spits and spurts.
Yeah.
Like you could, I'm blessed with that. So
Yeah.
if you happen to be, say, built like me, but you're 6'5",
Yeah,
and you're a
right.
heavyweight,
Yeah.
that's difficult now.
It's
Do you know what I mean? Like in
yeah.
terms of picking your training partners and like how do you do it with? Tom Aspinall
Yeah.
spoke about this, right?
Yeah,
like
not having heavy. Yeah, and now he's actually
got
built
a
a
heavyweight
place
camp.
for being able to actually train and move guys.
and I know someone who's been in that, who's in that room regular, and
Yeah.
like, it benefits him massively because he's a big, massive.
Yeah.
Louis Sutherland, right? He's
Yeah,
just signed to the UFC.
Yeah,
Friend of my podcast. Shout out Big Louis.
Yeah.
Supports the wrong football team, but that's all right. But no, he's in the UFC and he's on the run now. Now
Yeah.
in person, he's a massive man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He's
yeah.
probably a guess 6'3",
Yeah.
and he's right on the heavyweight limit of 120s. Do you know what I mean? Big
Yeah.
man, built to be that big. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not like a. Not, you know, not that there's fake heavyweights out there, but you know there's some people out there that fight a heavyweight, but they're not necessarily a natural heavyweight.
They probably be,
Right. Whereas this heavyweight, you know what I mean? Like Tom Aspinall, another example, heavyweight. Do you know what I mean? Proper heavyweight.
Yeah.
So like training with each other
Yeah.
is where they should be. Like Tom Aspinall as an example, because he's champ, turning up at just any given gym.
Yeah.
Then around with a bantamweight, then
Yeah,
he
yeah.
gets a light heavyweight
Yeah.
and then moves on to a welterweight.
Yeah.
That's not the way to train. Now, I'll contradict myself with what I'm saying. It's a good way to train if you ain't got a fight coming up, for looks and whatever, probably.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, again, a big heavyweight will probably be able to tell you better than I would. But that makes sense to me. But if
Yeah.
you're 6 weeks out from world heavyweight title fight, don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny actually because, and this might not be true because you never know like what you read in news articles and things like that. But I did see a while back that I think Darren Till said, sparring with Tom Aspinall regularly took a hit on my MMA career. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, I think to an extent, when you are just that big of a guy, even something when they're trying to be light,
Not necessarily,
but typically speed and
speed,
movement.
right?
Yeah.
So the speed's off, right?
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm always sparring a big heavy lump, I'm faster than him.
Yeah.
Now suddenly, someone who's more close to my side's you, and we're going to fight. Oh, hang on a minute. He's fast, this guy. You might not be.
Yeah.
But you are compared to the oaths that I've
yeah,
been sparring.
yeah,
Do you see
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So there's only that. Like I've said this before, like I've sparred with good level amateur heavyweight boxers. But if I'm sparring 2 or 3 rounds, I can go as fast as I can go. So I'm getting the better of them rounds, right?
Right.
Really. Because now that's not saying they're not jumping on you, rushing and trying to
Yeah,
fall
yeah,
on you
yeah.
and tweak your arm and shit. But in a boxing sense, advantage, take out me, my size, right?
Yeah.
Because it's fast paced.
Yeah.
Now, if you're still in front of them in 10 rounds, that advantage goes away.
Yeah.
If you start slowing down,
Yeah.
now you're dead,
Yeah.
right? But you can see the point I'm making.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen people go down a weight division and get their ass whooped?
A lot.
Why? Because they're faster. It ain't
Yeah.
easy, man. It ain't easy going
well,
down.
and I think Dan Hooker's a good example of this actually, who just fought recently when he went down to, what was it? It was featherweight, I think, and he got ironed out by Arnold Allen.
He did, yeah.
And then, went back up and, because they also say that when you sort of drain yourself that much, it also takes, it takes away from your chin as well, from that
But you
ability.
also feel terrible. My experience from it, like with amateur boxing, sometimes trying to lose too much weight. Now, bear in mind, you don't know what you're doing. You fight, you're just starving. And not doing
Yeah.
anything. But that feeling of getting in there flat, of like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
firstly, I can't be bothered tonight. I don't really care.
Yeah.
And it's like, what good is it? I'm fighting someone a bit smaller. I should have
Yeah.
gone up and fought
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
heavier,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll feel great.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that's the way. Now, within reason, right? Because if you just decide I'm going to make my own.
I'm going to go heavy. Yeah,
There's obvious
not going to
problems-
work out well.
There's problems you're going to run into.
100%. I mean, as they say, power's the greatest equalizer. Like, we saw guys like Deontay Wilder maybe didn't have the same level of boxing skills as some of the guys that he was fighting, but when he was able to land that right hand, I think it was the Luis Ortiz fight, when he was losing that fight.
What happened to Deontay Wilder when he started trying to box more?
Yeah.
Started losing.
Yeah.
Right? He
Yeah.
got beat by Tyson Fury, and then it looked like, you don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
but it looked like he went to boxing camp.
Yeah.
Never going to work, because you're a
Yeah.
million years behind these
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Land the
yeah.
right hand.
Yeah.
Every time. Zed.
Yeah.
Land
yeah.
that right hand.
Yeah, he lost that element of like what made him special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Superpower.
That kind of, yeah.
Superpower.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you need.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Obviously, like, with the size thing, when I was talking to Frank Gilfeather the other day, and like we sort of specifically landed on Rocky Marciano, right? Now, I find that, and I mentioned him because he's quite a controversial one when it comes to boxing heavyweight champs. Because some people are like, oh, he didn't fight anyone, he's, padded record and this, and other people are like, he's the greatest, he's the best and stuff. I think he's pretty much was one of the smallest heavyweights champions in history. Not only just, as he said, by height, but also by weight. I don't think he ever weighed more than 192 pounds. Now, I think, of course, if you put him up against some of today's giants, you know, he would struggle, but he was able to still beat even guys in his own era that did outweigh him. But, you know, even, again, back to Wilder. Wilder wasn't, he's big at all, but he wasn't that. No. You know, sometimes he was weighing a 212.
Wilder had a very long reach as well. And Rocky Marciano's got a ridiculously short reach. Rocky Marciano is 5'11", I think. He's got 68-inch reach.
Yeah.
But he made it work for him. I think that's the guy, when we talk about Wilder landing the right hand, that's your gift. Don't try and jab and ping and move. If he tried to Floyd Mayweather people, you wouldn't be nowhere. There's a big element, a huge element of just being what you are. And Rocky Marciano couldn't really box that well. If you watch his training videos, anyone out there, they're like a joke.
Yeah.
He's working on what he needs to work.
Yeah.
He's getting close.
Yeah, he had his own style. It's funny because I do have this discussion sometimes, I think maybe with the more modern boxing fans, and they're like, no, you know, I'm sorry, but like, there's no way that Muhammad Ali in his prime could beat someone like Tyson Fury or AJ because, you know, they're 6'6" or this, you know, and they're 200 and, you know, a good big one always beats a good small, like they fall back on that one, you know. And of course, as you say, if that's a bantamweight going up against, I agree, but I don't see why somebody like, you know, Muhammad Ali doesn't beat AJ or a Fury.
Well, he's about the same size as Usyk.
Right, and look what happened,
So that goes out the window to me. And also, my other view on that is at a certain point, you're big enough. Like, how big do you need to be?
Right.
If someone that weighs 210 pounds and is fast hits you on the chin, that's as big,
it's gonna be
as big as you need to be to me. Do you know what I mean? There's elements of, at a certain point, you're big enough.
Yeah.
And I believe in that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there was a famous jiu-jitsu grappler who kicked Dylan Dennis out of his gym. Marcelo Garcia, right. Now, he was very famous for being not really that much of a big guy, but he was competing against those absolute weight tournaments and doing pretty well, wasn't he?
Absolutely. At a certain point, you use what you've got. The thing is, to me, with size, and the advantage of it is like, it's training that way. Right. So, for example, if someone who's an average size, let's say, who's strong, athletic, ticks all the boxes as a fighter, they train every day with other people that are their size, a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. They do everything right, and then they've got to fight with a heavyweight. Yeah. Okay. Now, versus they've got to fight with a heavyweight, and all they do is train with heavyweights. Which one's better?
Yeah, I mean, probably the one that trains with heavyweights.
See, that would be my initial thing, but then you think about it a bit more, and I go, maybe not. Why? Because you're taking the damage of the heavyweight. Yeah. You're also meeting their pace and getting used to it. What are you going to try and do? Be strong with them? It's not going to work. So, to me, the better way is to train with your normal guys, get yourself as best you can be, and then have a fight with a heavyweight. Do you see what I'm coming from? Yeah. Because there's elements of the more you do that, the grind on your body is going to beat you down. These big men pulling on your neck, punching you in the belly, kicking your leg, it's going to slaughter you. But for one time, quick go, your speed might pay dividends. Yeah. How do you go? Because like that's obviously an interesting point as well about, you know, how breaking down the body and things like that. And you know, injuries are common, right, in these sports, right? Because as you say, it takes a toll. How do you go about sort of, you know, trying to rehabilitate, keep your body injury free? Like what kind of stuff do you do to then ensure that you can train for longevity and not just maybe be one of those guys that's there for 6 months and then boom, my shoulder's gone and then you never see him? Well, that's a good point. Not every day is a fight day. You're going into training. You've got to really look at training that you're going in to get better. Now, that goes across in martial arts and in the weight room. Back in the day, like you'd go, for me anyway, and most people that I know, you'd go spar hard. Yeah. Then you'd go to the gym and you'd train like a power lifter. Then you'd then you'd run like you're training for the Olympics in a marathon. Yeah. It's the wrong way. You can't sustain it. Do you know what I mean? And injuries come. So it's more like, I'm not gonna, if I was to run, say, a 5K, I ain't running that 5K to beat a time. I'm just running. You're just doing it to, When you go like to look after your body in the gym, I'm not doing 1 rep maxes. Right? I'm lifting heavy for a rep range and smooth. And it's all to look after my body. It's not for numbers. I don't care. You know what I mean? Body weight is most of the stuff I do anyway. Okay, if I'm doing things like Olympic lifts or deadlifts, squats, things like that, yeah, great. But it's almost like I try and not pay attention to the number. Put a weight on it that feels good that day. And of course, over time, you get stronger. Can progress, but it's not for the sake of getting stronger. It's for the sake of making me stronger. Now, I know it sounds a bit weird, but like it's to make sure that when I go wrestle tomorrow, firstly, I'm not tired and exhausted for it, and my knee's not going to pop every time I step. So it's more of a, I'm looking after this. This is like your sculpture, if you like. I've got to look after this. Yeah. I'm not looking to be a powerlifter in the fight. So it's like, I want, when I go and spar, I'm as good as I can be. You're always going to be injured, and that's the other side of it. You've got to accept you're always going to have something wrong. Right, that's what fighters always say. They're like, fighters never go into
a fight where they're 100% okay.
And nowadays, people are training a lot better, especially top level guys. I've been blessed recently to train with people that have fought in the UFC, sessions like that, high levels of judo, wrestling, boxing, all these kind of things in their own art. And if you watch and listen to them more, like, because not watch back in the day when they was in the peak of their career or whatever, you learn from that. And like, a lot of these guys, like if you go to a session now with them and train with them, and again, I've been very lucky to train with very high level guys recently. This ain't a blood and gut session anymore. This is for the sake of getting better. This is not like back in the day. 10 kicks, 10 punches, sprawl. Get up from the bottom. Now, again, there's a time and a place for that. Because if you're 3 weeks out from a fight,
you want that kind of thing.
But that's not the time to be learning. That's the time to be pushing it to the peak of physical condition. You can't be in the peak physical condition all the time.
No.
Because things are going to pop. But you can be pretty close. You can maintain sort of 80%, 90% maybe.
Which is kind of like what the Diaz brothers did when they weren't fighting. They were doing triathlons and things.
There's training versus workout, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's say you're a banker, right? And all you do, I said banker, not nothing else. You're a banker, right? And you got a day job and you train 3 days a week. You versus someone, or that person, theoretical person, is going to train very different than someone like me.
Right.
Who does this for, like, you know, who teaches people for a living, does like...
Yeah, and you train every day.
Train every day, multiple times a day. Right, we're going to train different because I'll train in a day as much as that person trains in a week. So what am I going to do? The same as they? No, I'll be dead. So they got to go to the gym. They've only got 3 hours.
So they need to smash.
So warm up aside, let's say, and you know, they're looking after their body. They're going to smash them 3 hours. The circuit, hit the bag. We'll do whatever you're doing. But if I'm going to go and train 2-3 times, say 2 times a day, and I've also got a teacher on top of that, and I'm also like striking maybe a little bit different, but if you're grappling, it's very hands-on, it's physical. So you could argue that 2 training sessions, looking from the outside, might really be 5-6 sessions.
No.
Do you see what I'm coming from? So it's about learning and about using your body right, and with that, the efficiency comes into play. So like, I want to make you carry my weight without having to squeeze you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a learning experience of how to learn in a way. You know what I mean? Where you can kind of, I need to make what I'm doing count too. Because I've been through periods of that too, and I'm sure a lot of people listening would definitely tell you. You go through periods of training so hard for 3 months. There's a lazy geezer that comes in the gym 3 days a week, if he's lucky. And he's improving better than you. And you go, what's happening here? I dominated him at the start of his 3 months.
And now
after 3 months, I'm still okay, but this is hard now. What have I been doing for 3 months? I've been training 10 times as much as him. He's getting a benefit and I'm not.
And it's exactly like that. I remember one of the coaches, one of the assistant coaches at the jiu-jitsu place, he would sort of say, don't look at other, you know, because naturally I think people do it, not just about martial arts, but in life. You know, sometimes you're like, oh, fucking hell, like that guy's exceeding me. He's going past me here. Or social media, you know, you're looking at other people. And he was like, don't look at other people or how much they train or if they get their first stripes on their white belt before you do or whatever. Because he was saying, you know, when he started, he was only training twice a week. And it took me X amount to get to black belt level. But he was like, everyone's journey's different. You know what I mean? But sometimes you do fall into that trap where you're like, oh, fucking hell, like, I can't keep up with this person anymore.
But also, it comes down to any given day. So, like, I was in a gym recently. I won't say which one or what art or anything like that. But I was in a gym and we sparred. We say sparred to keep it vague of what sport it was. Right? So I sparred with this person. Now, I know this person's bigger than me. And he's going hell for leather because he probably trains 2 or 3 days a week. He's good. He's not a beginner. He's okay. But if I go hell for leather, I'm going to be on top of him. Okay? I'm not going hell for leather because I've trained that day and I'm training tomorrow and I've got clients and I'm looking to get better. This is not a fight for a world title. So I'm doing my thing and I'm moving about and no one got hurt. But at the end of it, I can see he's buzzing. Now my ego wants to go, bastard, I could have done it. But for what? Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any difference. Again, no one's ever going to remember what happened on that Tuesday.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he might, but if that's a big deal to him, that's all we need to say. Right? Do you know what I mean? But the sort of wherewithal to go, I'm here for getting better. So if you break my arm because I'm going heavy, break my arm's extreme. I go away with an elbow injury because I've gone too crazy that I didn't need to today. What's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
And also, how does that do for my session tomorrow?
Right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Exactly.
So now over the next couple of weeks, my improvement's gone anyway, isn't it? So what's the point?
Do you feel though like, is there a maturity aspect of that where you feel like now you're at an age where you can be a bit more mature with the, like, do you feel like, say if you were 20, would you have still handled that the same or would you have been more likely, do you think, to, you know what I mean?
But I think it's more like, it gets to the point where it's like, can't be bothered. Like it's nice to sit here and say, yeah, I've matured. I don't know if I have, you know what I'm saying? Because it catch me in the right mood, I still have road rage.
Right.
Like, and when I say the right mood, that means driving.
That means,
whenever I'm driving. But like, it's just that it's like, I want to get better. I want to still be on the mats when I'm 60.
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean? I want to be
right,
doing
right.
it. So it's like, if you're coming in and you've been training 2 or 3 years, not that I'm poo-pooing anyone, you can be amazing after 2 or 3 years. But, you know, you're still in that kind of, I want to train hard all the time, I'm smashing it, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to injure my elbow. Do you know what I mean? Because, okay, great, I dominate, fine. But I go now, I've got a little pull here. It's nothing major, it's not an injury, but I didn't need that.
Yeah,
and then I get out
yeah.
of the car and
Oh, yeah,
stiff. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like, and now I'm going to training and the next session's not. You've got to get to the point where it's like, hey, you're doing this for you.
Yeah.
I don't care what you think. Do you know what I mean? You can, you know, oh, I did really well today. Good. I
Yeah.
did well because my session was for getting better, and I feel like I got a little bit better.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
100%. I do remember some of the higher belts at Jiu-Jitsu would specifically say biggest chance of injury often comes across with newbies, with white belts.
That's another point, because this might sound like a contradiction now. If I spar with a white belt who's jumping around like a jack in the box, clamp straight away, finish, tap, settle it down. Maybe again, just to set the tone, just to let them know that now when you're flowing, and by the way, this is not me trying to make out I'm some Gordon Ryan ADCC.
No.
I can flow with anyone. Tap that quick, nip that in the bud, get rid of that. And let them know where it is, so they're not thinking like it's a back and forth battle now. They know. So they'll, for the most part, settle down. And if they don't, get to a position, get on their back, knee on belly, dominate in that sense. You know what I mean? You don't have to use my energy, my whatever you want to call it, to hurt myself.
But
you've got to nip it in the bud.
You've got,
because you can't, because here's the thing, I've got a training partner as well, and he's very good at jiu-jitsu, really, really good. But he's got injured many times from flowing, sitting on his back, and the guy jumped on his leg and twisted his toe. And it's like, mate, you didn't need that. Just tap him, punish him.
Yeah, because otherwise you are opening the invitation for crazy.
Just show him that you're on a much better level.
Yeah.
So it's not a fight. If you want to turn it up on him, we'll call this guy John.
Yeah.
John, just turn it up on him.
Yeah.
Now he knows that John can do that, so he might go, oh, right, okay, cool. And then John might go, look, just stop, put your foot there. Put your elbow in instead.
Yeah.
And then you get that kind of benefit from it. Because I believe, like, it's famous, I don't know how true it is, but Roger Gracie allegedly won world titles training with only blue belts. Again, that might be one of them romantic things.
Yeah, it could be.
But you can see the principle's still true, whether it actually happened or not. But it's like he can get his work from them, right? Because he's showing them, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and like they're going to get pretty good pretty quick at stopping it, right?
Yeah.
He's explaining exactly how he's going to do, so he has to find a new route to it. And that's, to me, is a good way of getting things. John Danaher, another one, says most of your training, and again, if I'm butchering it and I'm not quite right, but from what I took from it, most of your training should be with people that you're better than. So you can flow and you can play and you can work on things with a live opponent.
Yeah.
But you got to flow, you got to be able to do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. On that, what's your, because there are some people that say, you know, for example, before we started doing this, we were talking, you know, about Diesel Gym, and, you know, we mentioned like Ian Gary. Now, it looks like potentially, of course, I'm not a UFC matchmaker, but it looks like he could be the next in line maybe for the Islam Makhachev fight, right? Potentially. Now, he's talked about, you know, I want to, you know, work with wrestlers, you know, might go out to Georgia and, you know, work with wrestlers and stuff. But there are a lot of people that say, can you get the skills needed in, say, 8 to 12 weeks? Take someone like Makhachev, who's been wrestling since probably he was, you know, what's your take on this? Can you, in like 2 to 3 months, get enough skills where you can neutralize someone at his ability? What do you think?
I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. Like, with time, sometimes there is an element of you ain't got enough time. Just don't worry about it. Work on
What
the
you can
element
do
of try and knock him out. I mean, I'm making it overly simple, but try and knock him out. And if he gets you down, be safe. And then you've got 5 chances at that because the bell's going to go and you get to go back on your feet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in them training camps, he will never be as good a wrestler as Makhachev.
Right.
But you don't have to. But it's a lot easier to stop him wrestling than it is to wrestle with him. Right? So it's easier to stop someone taking you down than it is to learn to take someone down. Right?
Yeah.
Common sense.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier than the other way around. So you can definitely get good at setting traps. You can make him think. So if me and you spar, and every time I kick your leg, low right leg kick, bash, you're probably going to move that leg eventually. Right? So I've taken a weapon away from you. Now that's a very simple way of looking at things because there's a lot more going on. But the principle is true. Do you know what I mean? Like if every time Makhachev, I don't know, ducks his head to the right, there's a kick waiting for him. Even if it doesn't hit him, just give him something to worry about. You know what I mean? Like things like that. So there's definitely an element of Ian Gary could go and get absolutely wrestled to death by, I think he said Georgians. Did you say Georgians? Yeah. So if he goes and does that, let's say he does, I don't know if that's the case, but if he does, you'll get pretty good at knowing what they're going to do. Whether you can stop it is a completely different animal. But if you're spending 12 weeks getting wrestled by someone with the same style as Islam. It's not Islam, but it's the same style, and that can be enough sometimes. If you look at Volk, I know he's got a completely different body than
Yeah,
Gary.
he did
Could be
well.
more different.
He did well, though.
But certain elements that he could stop, right? So if you can like look at, I don't know, let's make believe a certain hand position that Islam needs. I don't know if he does, but let's say he does. And you get good at stripping it. You get good at blocking his hips when he goes a certain way. That's how you'd build it, because the mistake people have made in the background is they go to wrestling camp and they just learn to wrestle.
Yeah.
You're way behind. You're better off going to a kickboxing camp and hoping to catch him.
Yeah.
You're not never going to wrestle with him. You're learning too much to put yourself in trouble, because you'll
yeah.
start to play that,
Yeah.
and he's going to just be like, all right, cool. Well, I'm at an elite level and you're essentially a blue belt level.
Yeah, because I was really surprised when I watched him versus JDM. You know, I did not think that it would be that one-sided. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Because, you know, as you mentioned, I saw the Volk fights and, you know, the first one specifically, obviously the rematch he took on.
I think the rehydration thing played into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, you know what? I think JDM, because I would genuinely say that I thought JDM had some of the best boxing in terms of the UFC. And I thought, yeah, this could be a real, but it, you know, like the grappling was just completely different level. You know, I remember when John Jones, for example, took that immense amount of time. Now, granted, it wasn't for skill. Apparently, it was more for size, for body. But I think he was coming at it also from a similar perspective where, yeah, I'm not going to do this in 2-3 months. I want my body to fully change in this year or 2 years. And I think he kind of felt like it takes this amount of time to really make that physical transformation.
A lot to that, but there's also another factor that I think people don't talk about enough, and that's like whatever you want to call it. Let's call it the God factor. Some people are born special.
Yeah.
There's certain things that just some people they've got it, and it's like it doesn't matter what you do. You know what I mean? Like, it does matter what you do, but they've just got this special thing that it's like.
Yeah, and I think he clearly, you know, he's for a lot of people, he would be the greatest of all time. Is he your greatest of all time?
Yeah, I think so. All things considered, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I have to say I was a huge fan of GSP growing up, and to be honest with you, I first actually discovered MMA through one of my friends had the Pride DVDs. He was giving me the
Pride.
Yeah. It was Japanese Pride MMA, and I remember like watching the Fedor fights as well and thinking, my God, you know, and he's obviously got a claim as well because
I think so.
what he was able to do and the people that he was able to beat as well. Fedor, Jones, or maybe you know GSP. Oh, and of course maybe Anderson Silva as well. And Demetrius, yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's quite disrespectful. Like, he kind of does get forgotten about a lot, maybe because of the weight division.
But for skill, you know what I mean? But like, listen, he's 5'3". Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a small man. And it goes back to what I was saying before, like, for someone this kind of size who's got like a plentiful training partners, the reality is this: lightweight UFC, welterweight UFC, them sort of weights are always going to be the most stacked because the reality is
the average,
that's the size of most men on this earth. You're narrowing it down. So then you've got to go and fight with bigger guys and train with bigger guys. Speed, all that kind of it's tough, man.
100%. I mean, look at, you know, you mentioned that those divisions now. Look at the welterweight division now. You know, Michael Morales, Ian Gary, Carlos Prates. You know, it's completely stacked with like top level talent in a way that I think a lot of people now, TJ Dillashaw was recently saying this. He was like, in a way that maybe the heavyweight division actually kind of isn't at the minute. We've got Aspinall, who and I've said this, to be honest, from when I first saw him in his first fight in the UFC, I felt like he looked special compared to a lot of the other, you know, that speed, that movement. You don't really see that often, and I think it shows how he's been able to kind of clear out quite easily, to be honest.
How do you think he'd do against John Jones?
I felt if that fight had happened when it was supposed to happen, I was leaning on Aspinall, to be honest.
Does the fight with Cyril Gane, does that change your mind?
No, and to be honest, you know, I'm sorry to say this as well, but I think a lot of MMA fans out there, I don't know if they're people that train or if they're just trolling or whatever, but, you know, even like his own dad said, so what? He had a nosebleed from a jab. So Nate Diaz bled every fight he had. It doesn't mean anything, you know, like it was a semi-competitive first round, but we didn't see anything enough to say, oh, he was losing the fight and, you know, he might have gone out in that second round and finished him and submitted him. I do think he goes in that rematch and wins. Granted, if there's no fouls again, because I think, you know, clearly Cyril Gane seems to have a history of some of these things.
We kicked John Jones in the nuts.
Right.
Like 5 seconds, didn't he?
Right. So,
like, this is my thing. Like, if you watch that, the John Jones one, I mean, like what John Jones done to him, I go, bro. At a certain point, you got to go, no one's beating him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the one for me. I know people say what about Cyril Gane's grappling, but it don't matter. Listen, he grabbed him like I'd grab a 12-year-old boy.
I was almost, with that fight, I was almost kind of feeling that Cyril Gane might have been overwhelmed by the moment, almost, rather than...
But I think that's part of greatness.
Yeah, that's probably part of the whole
shrink in front of him.
I was listening recently to Chris Weidman talking to Daniel Cormier. He was sort of saying that the same thing existed with Anderson Silva. When Anderson Silva was the spider, knocking everyone out, no one could touch him. He went into that fight only 9-0 with only 9 fights. And he's going up against, this greatest of all time. He basically had to say, I couldn't go in there with that mindset. And Bisping talks about this as well. You can't go in there with that mindset of like, oh my God, like it's the legend. Because then you will fall prey to that. You can't go in there giving them that level of... And Bisping's talked about that himself, like when he fought Silva, he did try and be a bit like, I'm going to fucking do this, screw you. And because he had to kind of convince himself mentally. Clearly, I think maybe, with the Gone thing, he was overwhelmed. I don't think that Aspinall would have been, to be honest.
No, I don't.
No, and I think he had I do think he would have had the tools and the weapons to beat him. I think he had the speed. I think he had the power. I think he has the grappling that Gone doesn't have. And I think he would have been the one to do it, but obviously we won't know. I was even curious on the Ngannou fight between John Jones and Ngannou. I think Aspinall has better skills than Francis, but again, we go back to the power being the greatest. What happens if someone like Ngannou lands?
Freak of a man too, like physical strength. Like if you see him, there's a moment when he fought Cyril Grant, Francis, where he I don't know the situation exactly, I can't remember, but he kind of scoops Cyril Grant and slams him like I would do to an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Me. Martial arts very late in life as well, didn't he?
His story.
Yeah, it's an amazing story.
Unbelievably
Unbelievable.
Harsh. He lost to Stipe, right? And he had that weird fight, that tentative sort of standoff.
That
Derek
Lewis,
Lewis. But since that, he clearly turned the corner, right? And I think he's a scary man. Having said that, John Jones beats any man that's ever lived. That's my opinion.
So you feel like had the Aspinall fight happened, you reckon he would have beat Aspinall as well?
I think he'd have dominated. I think it'd have been a great first round, and then I think it would have just been a takeover. That's what I think. Now, I'm not 100% confident that Tom Aspinall wouldn't get him out of there early. But my view on the fight would be it wouldn't be close either way. It would either be a Tom Aspinall Russian crash and back, but I think John Jones would find
a way. Yeah. What do you make of for example, some people felt that he lost that Reyes fight, or he had close fights in the past, whether with Gustafsson or with even with Silva and what was it? Was it Thiago? What was
Santos?
Thiago Santos. Sorry.
I think there's elements of that.
Yeah.
Plus, listen, at the top level, the margins are small. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I just think, But if you've defended a title so many times and you're fighting someone that no one thinks has got a chance, you got to assume there's an element of whatever, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether that's true or not, we might not be giving Reyes credit, but look at Reyes' whole career. And John Jones' whole career. I don't think there is an argument Reyes won that fight, definitely. But I don't think there's an argument Reyes is a better fighter than John Jones.
No, I agree.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I agree.
So on any given night, let's just say you're way better than me in every element. You're faster, you're stronger, you're younger, you're this, you're that, you're more skills, everything. But you've gone out last night and you don't feel well.
Right.
I'm in the best shape of my life. I feel great. That can tighten things. You know what I mean?
It's funny you mentioned that actually, because that was basically the beginning of the Luke Rockhold Michael Bisping rivalry. Their sparring story. He was saying, I was out, the night before, meeting girls, drinking wine. Bisping came in, obviously ready to spar world. The sparring obviously went as he's told the story many times. It went that way, and he spoke about it, and then boom, And on that, I'm a big fan of Michael Bisping. I think what he was able to achieve was incredible, given the one eye, and he really is a fighter's fighter.
Yeah.
He really is a fighter's fighter. But I would say that, to your point, like what you've just said, skill for skill. I would say that Luke Rockhold is the more well-rounded martial artist. He's got the better grappling. He's probably got the better wrestling. He's probably got the better kicks. So skill for skill, you would have to, but.
And a better athlete.
Right.
Bigger man.
Bigger, it doesn't matter.
Because he lost.
Exactly. And sometimes you're only as good as,
GSP spoke about this too. They asked him, all the people, how was you better than he made some sort of correlation of I'm better than him that night. You know what I mean? It doesn't always mean you're better all the time. It's that one night, that's it.
Completely. And he said, I remember him saying as well, he didn't believe, he was like, I didn't ever believe that I was best in the world. And he said, for the simple reason that okay, I'm the champion. But maybe the guy that's ranked number 13, he can't beat the guy that's ranked number 10, so he can't get into that position. But maybe he's a horrible matchup for me, and we just don't find out because he can't get there, And I always thought, that's kind of interesting because, as they say, styles make fights.
GSP spoke about weaponizing pace too, right? Now, a good example today, which is a very extreme, is Merab.
Right? Unbelievable pace.
That's a massive part of his game.
Yeah.
Obviously, that never get tired and going for it. And also, I do think there's an element of mindset to that too, right? Whereas at top level, you're fit, right?
Yeah.
And forget
Yeah.
top level, anyone that trains constantly, everyone's fit, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
100%.
everyone's in shape. Well, like if you can put a pace and decide you're going to keep going, if you decide for 5 minutes you're going to go, that will carry you a lot further
Yeah.
as well than sort of, I'm going to get tired.
Yeah, I'm like, how many fighters have we seen use cardio? Like Bisping was one who used cardio as a weapon. Colby Covington. You look at Colby Covington.
Who's boxing Luke Rockhold, by the way? Situation we talk about that other.
Yeah, that's random. But I mean, you know, he wasn't an explosive, great wrestler, but his biggest weapon was his cardio. He was able to overwhelm people, keep that pace on. And I think it is a real, you know, the Diaz brothers, like it is a real weapon. You know what I mean? Like if you have, it can actually become one of the biggest deciding factors. I mean, look at a recent fight that was an example of that was Jiri Prochaska versus Khalil Roundtree. Up until really Khalil was kind of piecing him up. And then, as you say, in that third round, it was almost like a switch went off in Prochaska's head. And he was like, I'm not stopping in this 5 minutes. And he just incessantly attacked. And clearly, obviously, Khalil just couldn't keep up with that. And, you know, obviously, Jiri got the knockout. Yeah. But he was just like, I'm using this pace now.
It's also what you're fighting for in terms of time, too.
Yeah.
If you're fighting for 3 or 5 rounds, you should spar, to me, and train for 3 or 5 rounds. Like, you hear people... I sparred 8 rounds in preparation for this fight. 8 5-minute rounds.
Yeah.
Well, how many rounds are you fighting? 3. Pace is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about fitness. I don't care how fit you are. Your personal pace is different if you're only fighting 3 rounds. If you know after 3 rounds, you can lay there. You can push a lot different than if I go, no, you're doing 8 rounds. You're game planning for 8. Do you know what I mean? Out from a fight, a long way out, that might make more sense for more time and whatever. But again, if you've got a fight coming, what the fuck are you training 8 rounds for? You're fighting 3. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The GSP spoke about that. He'd spar, he'd train. Whenever he was training, he'd want to know how hard he could push for 5 rounds. So all of his training would be 5 rounds, 5 fives. Boom,
yeah, which makes sense. Which makes. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think they changed the Pride set where they used to have like I think 1 10-minute round. And sometimes they found that guys would pace themselves a little bit too much because they were scared of gassing out in that 10 minutes. And sometimes they even had no limit. And I think Hoyce and Sakuraba fought kind of a no limit.
Like 1 15-minute fight, go.
Yeah.
I think you'd get more stoppages. Because
I think you're right.
15 minutes is a beast of amount of time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
15 minutes is no joke.
And you don't think that then they would sort of regress into like, you know, tentative, conservative. Yeah.
And I think you'd get people like come out the gates and go,
I'm trying to,
you know what I mean? Because I think the scoring thing's wrong too. I don't think there should be a point system in any facet. I think me and you should watch a fight. Who won? Keep it that simple. I don't need to go to judging school.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I saw 2 men fight outside the Smuggler's Arms. Right. I don't need to go. But do you remember that kick he threw?
Do you remember how much control time did he have?
And I don't think if it's close, I don't think there's anything wrong with going draw.
Right.
It's close. Do you remember? Shut up. Draw.
Yeah.
But in the first round, he threw 7 more kicks.
Yeah.
It weren't that effective because I don't remember them.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm a big believer in this, and I know people have got different opinions. Me and you fight, right? Me and you fight. It's a 15-minute fight. For the first 5 minutes, I beat you from pillar to post. You've got no answer. I'm all over you. The next 5, you come back and it's very tight. The last 5, complete opposite. You beat me from pillar to post.
Yeah. I know.
The person who wins at the end, to me, because what I did to you weren't that relevant because you got through it and you turned it around, and by the end, the bell saved me. How I think fights should be scored.
That's interesting. I mean, we have obviously seen a lot of issues with judging recently, whether it's boxing, MMA.
I'm talking about fight, by the way, like not restricted rules, because that's another one of my gripes. Is jiu-jitsu guys will say, "I'm fighting on the weekend." No, you're not.
You got jiu-jitsu.
Fight. It's a grappling match.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a fight. An MMA fight, that's a fight.
Yeah.
That's a fight.
Yeah. 100%.
Don't there's limited rules, but it's a fight. You're fighting.
Yeah.
Grappling is not fighting.
100%.
And probably, arguably, the most important aspect of fighting as well, by the way. But on its own, I don't think you should call it a fight.
Yeah.
It's a grappling match.
Yeah. And on that, with the judging as well, I think it was a few weeks ago, Jelton Almeida fought. Now, he spent the entire time just laying on top of him, not even really doing any ground and pound. And I think he lost that fight.
Yeah, he did.
He lost that fight because I think in his mind, he thought that by laying on top of someone, that's enough to show, that I'm winning. But really, you're not.
No, there's an element of hiding from the fight. Not that that's necessarily what he was doing, but you definitely could hide from a fight.
Yeah.
I can't submit you because I'm not good enough. But
Yeah.
I can hold on and I've avoided the fight. 15 minutes, made it.
Yeah,
you don't deserve to win.
Yeah,
to me. That to me is a great example of draw.
Yeah, and that was a strategy. I mean, there were wrestlers back in the day that lived on that strategy, lay and pray.
Yeah.
They called it, where they would just lay and sort of wait it out and stuff. And the judging thing in general does need a bit of an overhaul. I mean, I've even heard some of the commentators say that sometimes they're at these events and they look and then the judge is on their phone, not even look look in the fight. Oh, he's laying on top of it. Oh, right, okay, he must have won this round. And then, maybe they valued the grappling.
Watch the fight and see who win, because I've heard people on podcasts and stuff talk about, like, maybe there should be a grappling coach, a judge and a striking judge, and all nonsense to me. You're overcomplicating things there. First of all, it's not striking or grappling, it's fights. If me and you watched 100 fights together, right? Out of that 100, I think it'd be in the high 90s, what we agree on.
We would agree,
if you just watch it, right?
Yeah.
Forget scoring, we ain't got pen and paper. Who won that fight?
Yeah.
Boom, he did. We'd probably agree most of the time.
For
That
sure.
to me is the way you should score it. And I'm not talking about a boxing match, because it's different. It's a round by round system. That makes more sense. I'm talking about an MMA fight. It's a fight. Just score. Who won? Just watch the fight and tell me who won. That's it. That to me, that could be how it is. If you're going to trust the judges, which you are anyway, because they're scoring it.
Because it's a shame when you see, like, obviously when bad decisions happen, it really affects their careers. You know what I mean? And you see things and you're like, oh, really, that person should have won and then gone on, and they've just kind of been robbed, you know what I mean?
And that's why I think it's not as easy as fixing it, like I'm saying, with the scoring, but I think the scoring would help to fix that, because you've got to try and win the fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, opinions would matter more to me, because scoring is, he scored 3 rounds to 2. 2 rounds to 1. Whereas, like, most people thought he won the fight. Why? Well, they just thought he won the fight. Yeah, but why? Well, they thought he won the fight. Why? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no why.
No,
they thought he won the fight. And if most people's opinion is that,
Yeah.
I think they're working in favour a bit more.
And then, of course, there's always, whenever there is a close fight, say like a close boxing match, say like Bivol Beterbiev won, which was fairly close, and a lot of people, and I think Beterbiev got the first one. I personally felt that like Bivol had done, but whenever a decision goes the way that you don't want to go, say as a fan, or it's not specifically you, but a lot of people online, it instantly ends up in robbery. He's been robbed, and really it was just a close fight. You know what I mean?
Right. But listen, the thing is this as well. Most people don't know what it looks like. Like, I've posted videos recently, and like the comments on it about certain things. You know what you're talking about.
That's the problem with social media. I think sometimes, I think it allows you to sort of maybe hide behind, a sort of safety net.
But there was one, like, I had a video, like, Carl Froch was in the video, right? Carl Froch is a multiple-time world champion boxer, elite level fighter, and people are going, he does that wrong, this wouldn't work, blah, blah. You look at the picture, and it's like a 50-year-old bloke in a vest in the mirror. You look at him and you're going, that sums it up, doesn't it? Bless him. Like, I feel sorry for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's who you are.
I know,
you know what I mean?
And I don't know, like, what compels you to criticise a multiple-time world champion?
I mean, let's be honest. If you're doing well health-wise, financially, you've got a great missus and kids, and you're making money, you've got a great home.
You're not going to be doing that.
Would you care? It rolls off.
Do you, like, the thing is, do you just ignore it? Because, like, there are some people that, and I've heard people talk about this, not just fighters, by the way, but just, anyone in general who's in the public eye. You might do this thing and you might get 90-something plus positive comments. Then you get 1 or 2 that are like, nah, you're shit, you don't know what you're on about. And then they end up focusing on the 2 negative ones.
But the issues with you, like, if you're worried about what someone's commenting already, if you're I'm not talking about if you're 14, I'm talking about if you're...
You're just like, whatever. But, sometimes I see, like, people, like, replying.
But like, why would you reply? For what? But for me, like, anytime, if I was, like, not that I'm some public figure, but, like, if I get comments on my videos, on YouTube, for example,
and someone says, you suck.
It's irrelevant what the comment is. I just want you commenting. Better for my channel.
Right.
For my channel. I'm not going to, because one of my friends said to me recently, why don't you, like, comment back to some and, like, just have some fun? I'm like, for what? Firstly, I'm a grown man. But also, it's like, if people are commenting, it's all good, because it's just more, I don't know how the algorithms work and stuff like that, but you get on coming from. Like, when people are commenting, it's a benefit.
It's going to help each other.
Right? What am I going to argue? Well, your jab looks slow.
No, it doesn't.
Like it all. I genuinely do. Maybe it's an age thing too, because I'm not 18 looking at it and going,
how dare you?
Cool. I don't care. Whatever. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. But to me, comment as much as you want, right?
Nah, for sure. I heard Rampage talking about recently, and he was saying, like, he was annoyed, this is years ago now, but he was annoyed with Rogan because Rogan made, on commentary, like, oh, he's not learned how to check leg kicks. And then he explained that it wasn't that I was, like, angry at Rogan himself. It was the fact that then all the trolls online started being like, you can't check leg kicks, you suck, you can't check leg kicks, learn how to check. And everybody's, like, messaging him, leaving comments and stuff. And now he's taking it out on him.
But I understand. But also, I think he's got a point, because it's like, Rogan's not a fighter.
Right.
Seen a million fights. He ain't been in a million fights. He's never fought. Do you see what I'm saying? To me, it's like if me and you watch every swimming race at the Olympics. But we've never been in a swimming pool. That is what Rogan's doing. I know it's a little bit different, right? But he's not fought. So for him to say, as an example, he's not checking leg kicks, you don't know why he's not checking leg kicks. Number one, it could be as simple as he's got an injury. Number two, which is probably more relevant, is you're missing what he's doing. So he might be letting that leg kick go because he's waiting for the opening for the right hand.
Yeah.
What do you know?
Yeah.
That's my opinion on that kind of stuff.
It's funny because Rousey obviously caught a bit of heat
Yeah.
recently, didn't she, for saying that? And then we had, what's her name, Shevchenko, come to like his defense and stuff and say, well, no, you know, and I see where you're coming from. And of course, yeah, he might be a black belt in, you know, in jiu-jitsu. And as you say, he trains and he has a taekwondo. But as you say, from a technical standpoint, he's never been a pro.
But also, and this sounds like a knock, it's not, it's just an observation. You're talking about a man who's a multi-millionaire,
Right.
who everyone's nice to because of that reason.
Yeah.
So if he was doing some martial arts, they're not trying to rip his head off, I would imagine.
Yes.
I don't know this. I don't know this. This is a guess, but fair guess. I think.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, and this is not a knock on Rogan, but it's like when you've seen a lot of fights, I think it could be an element of he should do that. And it's like, maybe he should. But also, where you've never done it, you don't know what's coming the other side.
Right,
He might be letting that leg get kicked because it's better than checking it for the follow-up, whatever that may be. It might be better than moving away and walking on to something else, right? And to just blindly say, oh, he should check that leg kick. It's like, give me a reason why he should check that leg kick.
It's it can almost be like, you know, when someone's on the ground and then you're like, get up, and you're like, you don't know how hard it is.
Also, yeah, you're right. But here's where it goes. It does work both ways. Because I think sometimes when you've done it a long time, and I've definitely experienced this with people, like, they're so, like, playing the game, if you like, of this is the technical way to do it. They can come back to an element of, you're right, just stand up.
Just stand up.
Don't play this game anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it works both ways. But
Yeah.
I don't
You don't
like
wanna-
it when people criticise fighters because I
agree.
just
I
go,
don't like
would
it
you know?
either.
I
agree.
And that extends, and I use Rogan as an example because this is a massively successful person,
yeah,
so it's not
yeah.
like you're picking on some dummy in his bedroom, right? You know what I'm saying? But it's relevant because it's like, you might be right in a technical sense, but it doesn't mean you're right in a practical sense because at the same time, if he's eating that kick, as an example, I know we're harping on a bit about the leg kick that Rampage is talking about, but first of all, if that leg kick's not doing enough damage, take the leg kick. Secondly, if that leg kick to check it is more energy and puts you out of position for what you're trying to do to them, don't check it. Do you see what I mean? There's a lot of moving parts.
No,
so to just
100%.
blindly get people saying, oh, we should check it.
100%. No, 100%. Anybody that makes that walk deserves the utmost respect, you know what I mean, regardless, because most people won't ever know how hard it is to make a walk like that and to actually commit yourself. They deserve the utmost respect. Of course, a lot of that sometimes goes out the window with trolls online and with what's going on and people making a joke out of people thinking that they can just walk into boxing now. People get hurt and people have lost their lives, especially in the sport of boxing. It's a serious thing, so...
Well, there's a big fight coming up. You got much review on that?
To be honest, if it does happen, if it does go ahead and happen, you know, there's got to be some sort of clause because there's just no way that, you know, in a real serious fight that would go past the first round.
I can't see it. Jake Paul gets in there. At a certain point, you got to go.
I'd respect,
Yo.
And of course, if you're training with, you know, inspiring with some of the best boxers and coaching, you're going to have skills, and he has got skills. You know, granted,
There's levels.
Yeah, of course, exactly. Like
Levels.
there's, you know, if you go from sort of, you know, losing to Tommy Fury, right, who, you know, with all respect is not a world-class boxer, you know, if you go from that to all of a sudden a former heavyweight world
He's
champion,
twice the size.
you know what I mean? Like, it's too big of a jump, you know what I mean?
I mean, if this fight gets out the first round,
It would be, you know.
because to me, listen, if Anthony Joshua turns up, this is a 30-second job. I'll walk straight across the ring, throw a 1-2, and that's enough. Well, not from evidence we've seen, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume we can assume
From
in the
what-
last few months that Jake Paul's upped his level, but that aside, he's shown nothing that's going to get him through a minute.
No.
Simple, right? But
No
we'll
way.
see.
We're going to see.
Maybe we'll see.
Let's
Because he's
see.
supposed to fight Javante Davis, and that fell out. So
I know,
things
okay.
happen. Things happen. I think
Yeah.
that would have been a weird fight because the size difference was overwhelming the other way.
Overwhelming,
But the
yeah.
skill difference was overwhelming. So it'd be
Yeah.
like,
And, you
would it
know-
be big enough to hurt him?
Exactly, and you know, you can't go from fighting, you know, like 60-year-old Mike Tyson and guys that are retired MMA fighters to now actually someone that's still pretty much...
A top level heavyweight, whichever
Yeah.
way. Right? I know he got knocked out in his last fight, but hey, listen, I'd be shocked.
I'd be shocked.
You
but-
know, because AJ must know this too, right? AJ's not suffers no fools, right?
No.
He's not going out there to look silly. He's
No.
not going to let this go for an 8-round decision.
No,
is
no,
he? Under
people
any-
destroy,
Because,
yeah.
Listen, I don't think you could have a proper fight with betting on it and have anything squirrely
No.
in place, right?
No.
So, and even if there was, which I can't see there ever would be, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that was what money would AJ pay to make himself look silly?
Yeah.
He's got enough money.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
not a
He
man
doesn't
coming
need
in
it.
it's poor, right?
Yeah.
So what's he going to do?
Yeah.
He's going to bomb him out, to me. I
Yeah,
think.
that's what I would
My
think.
bigger concern with this one would be Jake Paul gets seriously hurt.
If there aren't any things behind
Have you
the...
ever seen AJ in person?
No.
Like, listen, this is a freak of a man. Like, this is a 6'6". He's got to be 111 kilos for this fight, which to me hurts Jake Paul more than helps him when he made him lose weight. Because firstly, 111 kilos ain't difficult to make.
No,
This
no.
is huge. And he's going to be in tip-top shape. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you're not helping yourself with that
No.
one. I don't see the logic on
No.
that. But we'll see. I'll be watching it.
I watch these kinds of things anyway. I watched a few weeks ago now, whenever it was, Tony Ferguson boxed like another sort of...
That was a weird one.
Yeah.
That guy, I don't know his background. Someone said he'd had a few boxing matches.
Yeah.
That was like someone who'd never fought before.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm happy. Look, if these MMA fighters, I was a big fan of Tony when he was in his prime, and if they're getting money now and stuff, I'm happy for them. But it's a shame that it has to get to the,
Shame, but I don't mind that as much because that's an MMA fighter going into a boxing match against one of these YouTubers. It's kind of whatever. It's not for me, but do you know what I mean? It's like, I get that. I don't appreciate is like when you've got these YouTubers that are calling out proper boxers. Now, this doesn't entail Jake Paul because I see him different. Because I do see him as someone who can fight. He can box.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
legit.
yeah.
He's just way out of his depth in this.
Yeah,
That's my
for
view on
sure.
it. But I don't put him in the same category as the other sort of
No.
influencer boxers. But some of them, I think some of them genuinely believe they can fight real boxers.
Yeah.
That's when I go, well,
Yeah.
now you asked for it. Now you deserve, you deserve to get embarrassed. Not hurt, you don't deserve to get hurt, but you deserve to get sort of shown up a little bit. It wasn't a boxing match, the MMA fight on the Misfits. It was Dylan Dennis fought some smoke.
Yeah.
Some guy who clearly couldn't fight.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't a good boxer, let alone an MMA fighter. And Dylan Dennis, I don't know if you've seen the press conference, Dylan Dennis is not a chill guy. He always gets involved. Even him, he was like, okay. Because he knows. He knows you got to get in. There's nothing you can do. It's not like this guy was an elite level boxer.
No.
He couldn't punch either, really.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to say a buffoon because you're still getting in there, fair enough. You're putting yourself out in front of the world, but you can't fight.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't fight at all. You can't even box, which is your thing, right?
Yeah.
You're not a boxer, so you just had a few boxing matches. So he's got in there with, did you see this fight?
No,
Well, I mean, Dylan Dennis, I think he guillotines him, but he grabs his neck within like...
straight away,
Walks across the ring, grabs him, chokes him, that's the end of it. And it's like... But that guy at the press conference was going like, I'm going to... It's like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing it for a payday and that's what you're about, it's not for me. But all right, I guess. Do you know what I mean? That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're deluded enough to think you had a chance, like, come on, bro. You must have grappled in preparation for that, and you must have had a mid-tier blue belt ruin your life.
Literally.
What did you think was going to happen against a black belt like that?
I wonder why it's become so popular in recent years now to do this whole Misfits boxing and doing all these things. Other guys as well. I mean, Jake Paul's got skills, and I agree. But other guys, people like KSI, like where it's come from, that all of a sudden everyone wants to kind of try.
Strange, because I don't know if you've ever been to it. I haven't been to a Misfits, but I've been to one of these, like, I guess you'd call it an influencer. And some of the guys on there, when you're looking at them, you're going like, have you ever trained
and what's going
in
on
your
here,
life ever? Like, what are you doing? Some of the guys on this card, you look up and you go, if I was 14, I could have beat you. You can't fight to save your life. Like, who thought this was... And not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't mind that if they're fighting each other. Right? This is not like a Puritan
100%.
thing. Like, you can
100%.
fight... If you're going to fight a fair fight, God bless you. You know what I mean? It's a great thing to do. But my issue is when you've got some person like that against Dylan Dallas, and he's going,
for sure.
I'm going to do... And when you look at it and you go, who are you?
Who is this guy?
Who
Yeah,
are you?
100%.
Chewing.
I'm saying, and it's like that guy, like Evander Holyfield, who was one of the greatest heavyweights,
True greats.
and an amazing fighter in his prime, just get done like that, he shouldn't have even been given a license, and it's not.
And I know Mike Tyson fought Jake Paul, but Mike Tyson can still look after himself.
Yeah.
He can't. He's not what obviously not what he was. He looked okay.
Yeah.
In terms of
in
he
terms
can
of-
still take a shot. He can
Yeah.
Evander Holyfield looked like like an aging person
Yeah.
with no balance, and also. There's a world of difference between fighting Jake Paul and fighting Vitor Belfort.
Right. You know what I mean?
Let's be honest. I don't know what the drug testing was like for that fight with Vitor.
Oh, yeah.
But Vitor looked good.
Yeah.
Vitor suddenly in his mid-40s looked good again.
They always say that, under TRT, Vitor was a different beast.
Mate, John Jones beat him, by the way.
I know.
He didn't have to cut weight.
I know.
That shows how good John Jones was.
Because that guy was cleaning out everyone when he was...
And had his arm.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not tapping. That goes a long way too. In the greatest of all time conversation, I think that plays.
He was willing to undergo that, Even the way that he was able to come back from the... Obviously, the thing is, with the Jones thing, because I'm such a fan of, Daniel Cormier, sometimes it's tough because I'm like, oh, man, persona-wise, as a person, it would be hard to say that DC isn't sort of, a better person in terms of how he carries himself. And as DC said, it's about being a champion in life, not just about the skills that you have. And I always felt like DC was... he carried himself more, he wasn't doing, the cocaine and the hit and runs and the, some of the stuff that, he struggled with and stuff.
And here's the thing too, this is an interesting point, because John Jones criticised Aspinall a bit, I think, about the poke in the eyes and shouldn't have done it. Now, I think his opinion on it, he's allowed that opinion.
Yeah, but he's been in those situations.
He's going to let that break, wouldn't
Yeah.
he? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think like he's earned that. Other people say, no, Tom Aspinall quit. Shut up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But whether you agree with him or not, I think John Jones has earned the right to go,
Yeah, yeah.
you did quit there.
Whether we agree or not,
that's what I'm saying.
He's allowed like that.
He's allowed that because it's like, we've
Yeah.
seen him in there when he's been in a
Yeah,
similar...
yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? Completely. Even Bisping, like, obviously he's friends with Aspinall, so he's never going to come out and be like, oh, you know, but he's like, no, he was right to, because, you know, if Aspinall went out there and then couldn't see and then got knocked out, no one's going to care about, like, your record's not going to show, oh, but he was poked in the eye. It's going to show that you got knocked out.
But I think someone, I can't remember who it was, I was listening to a podcast, they brought up Anthony Smith. Do you remember when Anthony Smith fought John Jones and he got kneed illegally?
Yeah, and he didn't take the easy way out.
He
He was
didn't
like,
take the
no,
way
that's
out.
not the kind of man I am.
The argument been put on it too, but you don't know what Tom's feeling. But
Yeah.
I think it's fair for people to say it. I do think that. I do think it's fair for people to have an opinion because the right people to have an
The
opinion.
right people to have an opinion.
And John Jones is the right people.
For sure.
Because he's...
There's no one better than... Yeah.
Right, so you've earned that right to say
Yeah,
it. Even
yeah.
if you've been in the octagon and you've lost 8 fights like Tony Ferguson, you've still done it.
You've still done it.
You got it right. Do you see where I'm coming
Yeah.
from? Like, he's a... And it's you were a fan of him, you said, right? Like, but it's sad how it ended in the UFC.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? Like, there was at one point where you were like, oh, could he... And looking back now, I don't think he would have beat Khabib.
I never thought he'd beat Khabib.
But, you know, when someone has momentum, like probably the same in any sport,
Yeah.
football, whatever, you know, when someone has momentum, you think, oh,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
far
yeah.
is this going to take?
I
you
never
know?
thought he'd beat Khabib. I never
Yeah.
thought he'd beat Khabib. But
Yeah.
I
But,
wanted to see. I don't think anyone was beating Khabib. I think Khabib was the guy. Here's an interesting point too. Like, and I'm not saying he's not better, but well-rounded skills versus effectiveness. This is an interesting point too. Like, for example, Khabib. I know they're different sizes, but let's pretend they're the same size. Khabib and Demetrius Johnson. Who's got more skills? Silly question. Of course, Demetrius Johnson has, right? But who's more effective? Khabib never lost. Demetrius got caught. Do you see what I'm saying? So there is an element of, I'm so good at what I do,
Yeah.
you're not going to stop it.
The only question that I would have with that is I find that, you know, up until really Khabib got to, you know, maybe the Michael Johnson fight, no, aside from maybe him and then obviously the McGregor fight, and they're all great, solid wins. But I think had he carried on a little bit longer, we saw it with Usman. You know, he was dominating everyone, and then he got head kicked. And I think that sort of thing could have happened to Khabib if he would have hung around longer.
Who's there?
Could, yeah, for sure.
Phil
Could.
Fury, innit?
I mean,
You know what I mean?
never did question of like, you know, when's the right.
But do you see my point? Like, if you've got more skills, you throw spinning kicks, you can do everything. You're a black belt in taekwondo, through jiu-jitsu, elite level wrestling. But every time we fight, I grab a hold of you, take you down and pound
you can't do anything. Yeah.
Who's the better fighter?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care what argument you've got of like tricky this, tricky that. I've got more skills, but that's a better fighter. It's about winning. You know what I mean? And that's why I put people like Khabib, John Jones, because they always won. They always won. And I guess you can argue like certain fights. Did they win this one? Did they? Doesn't matter. Look at the record.
I think Khabib, obviously, I do have him maybe slightly under guys like Jones and GSP and Silva, just because of like, you know.
I wish he'd fought GSP.
Right.
I think they both wanted it.
Yeah. As he said, it was his dad's favourite fighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Champion. You know, and GSP was someone that fought the best of the best, avenged his losses. GSP. You know, and got out at that right time when he was starting to sense that, okay.
The same for me anymore. But I think he got out at the right time in a lot of senses, not just in terms of where he was in his career, but also he didn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah.
That's a good time to stop, innit?
Right.
So, but he didn't look interested.
No.
He looked like he wanted to get through it,
And that's
made
it.
it. Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
And I think, listen.
And when you lose that,
Listen,
it's got to.
if you're not excited about fighting is hard.
Yeah,
Fighting's hard at the
you've
best
gotta
time.
stop.
Like, if you don't want to do it, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Especially someone like that.
Yeah.
Made his money, set up for life.
Yeah.
He was probably, I think he was 32 when he fought
Yeah.
Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah.
Mate,
No,
come
exactly.
on.
I mean, wasn't it Hagler that said, you know, it's hard to
Yeah.
go running in the morning when you're waking up, and,
Yeah.
and once you start to lose that.
But also, it's interest. I don't think it's so much about money or richness or anything like that. It's when you've got genuine goals that you want to achieve, like you actually want to do it, that's different versus like, I'm just over this now. I don't want to do this anymore.
And maybe they don't want to compete anymore. They might just want to still train. They might want to think it, but they're not bothered about now, like going, you know, it's a hell of a position.
To be like
you know.
32, never going to have to work or worry about money again, and achieve all your goals, beat everyone you've ever fought.
Right.
Hey, he came back. He was a two-weight champion, so his legacy's even greater.
Exactly, and he thought, you know, and now's the right time to hang it up. Do you know what I mean? And he can still continue because, and you know, that's one of the things that I think a lot of fighters struggle with the most when they retire. Like Dustin Poirier was talking recently. Actually, they were asking him, "How have you found life after fighting?" A lot of fighters, I think, struggle when they retire, like it was the biggest high of their career, you know, their life, you know, going in, fans, screaming. It's like a drug for them, I think. It's everything that they've devoted their life to. And then all of a sudden you go from that to, oh, I'm managing my businesses and doing meetings. And it doesn't quite feel the same for them. And maybe psychologically that can be tough for them.
But also, you're never going to replace that, right?
No.
So you've got to stop at a certain point.
Yeah.
You want to get beaten out of here. I know it's easy for us to say.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
do you know who Dorian Yates is?
The bodybuilder, yeah.
So he was in, I know he's not a fighter, but it's the same thing. He was at the top of the top.
Right,
Of this thing.
yeah.
He said when he retired, he said something along the lines of, when I was listening to a podcast, of when people retire, a lot of the time they feel like that. I'm never going to do that again. I can't do this anymore. He said when he turned a corner, because I think he spoke about going through a bad time, whatever. When he turned the corner, he started looking at it like, it's not so much I can't do that anymore. It's like, look at all the million things I can do that I couldn't do.
That's
and
a
I
great
think
way
that's
to look
a
at it.
great way,
Great
because it's
way
like
to look at
there's
it.
a lot of freedom. You don't have to get up in the morning anymore. You don't have
Yeah,
to
you don't have to run.
but you can still go train.
Yeah, exactly.
I can still go, you know what I mean?
As
Like,
we
I
said,
can still
yeah.
go and do all the things I used to do. I just don't get the 3 times a year.
Exactly. I don't have to do the weight cuts, and the thing is, it can still be a part of your life. And
It's interesting to listen to people say it when you hear it like that, because like Ricky Hatton is an example. If you listen to some of the things he said, like how when he was going through the depression, how he felt about people looking at him, when in reality everyone loved him, but he looked at it like he thought people was laughing at him and things. It's like, you don't know what goes on in the head, right? So it's hard. He's the one that's got to go home and like, I'm 37 and I can still fight. I still want to, you know, I'm GSP. I'll go and have one more fight.
Right,
And he did it, right? And it's like the amount of people that come back and it goes wrong for them far outweighs the people that Henry Cejudo's fighting this weekend.
Yeah.
Not undefeated, sorry, but he was like at the top of the top.
Yeah.
He'd beat everyone he'd ever fought, minus Joey Benavidez, which was a split decision. He was a 2-weight champion, Olympic gold medalist, looked at as in the conversation of one of the all-time greats. Now he comes back to a 3-fight losing streak and he's having another retirement fight against a tough fighter. It's not looking as good for him
as what it did when
it's easy to look from the outside for us and go, oh, he shouldn't have done it. But he wanted to.
Yeah.
So fuck it. To me, it doesn't take his achievements away.
No.
I know it mars it a little bit, but it doesn't take it away. He still did that.
100%.
Just because he got old or
100%.
older or not as good as he was, it doesn't change how good you were. And that's to me.
100%. And that was the same with Anderson Silva. I forget his last.
Well, Anderson didn't lose till he was 38. UFC, I know he had losses earlier, but like in the UFC, he lost. And hindsight's everything, right? But you look at when he fought Stephan Bonner. Do you remember this fight?
Yes.
When he looked like an alien.
Yeah.
He was 38. He was in his hometown. That would have been the perfect time to go. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm at 100%.
He'd be in that John Jones conversation. Who would have won? Who
Yeah.
would have won? Now, no one would argue, right?
Yeah,
Of course,
no.
John Jones would.
Yeah.
Whoa!
That would have been the big question.
And now his whole legacy is not gone because he's still one of the all-time greats, but it's tarnished, right? You mentioned earlier. Another one. He's
in everyone, and
Of
then
course.
obviously the Verdum submission lost, and then just
went on a skid.
Went on a skid
skid.
after
But
that.
like he beat, who was the guy he beat? Brett Rogers before.
Yes.
His last win
Yeah,
before,
yeah, before it
while he was
started to-
undefeated, right? I know he had one funny loss early, but it was at
yeah, and
Casino.
he avenged that anyway.
He
big
never lost,
time,
right?
Yeah.
Another undefeated fight, like John Jones'
Yeah.
crazy loss, right?
Yeah.
Never lost. So if he'd have retired then, in the ring, peace, thanks for
Again,
everything.
greatest of all time, like
Right,
you know.
but that's the thing, because it's difficult to look back on them as that, because they have lost. You go, well, he weren't that good.
yeah.
But it's a tricky argument. It's not black and white to me. Was he not that good, or did he just fight too long? I don't know. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's like, it doesn't change what he did before. He just started losing.
I agree, 100%. And like as we were saying about Jones earlier, like he probably did really get out. Like as you say, when you've beaten all these people and stuff, you know, and he's not got the same motivation, then
I think that's the thing. Because if he came back, I think it'd affect him. Let's say he lost to Aspinall. He's got to live with that. I think that'd affect him, like, massively.
Yeah.
Like, from you listen to him talk, him being the greatest of all time mattered a lot.
Yeah.
Do you know? In reality, let's just say, I'm not saying it would happen, but let's just say that when he fights Cyril Gane again, Cyril Gane beats him on points and, like, outclasses him. Not that I think that'd happen, but just argument's sake.
yeah.
History changes, then you go, oh, yeah, John Jones. By
like good.
Exactly, and that's
yeah.
the other conversation. But the bigger one will go, oh, yeah, John Jones was the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If he's not motivated to fight him, it's a dangerous fight, isn't it? You want to fight Tom Aspinall when you're not feeling it?
Yeah, that's
you're
the bigger
being
guy.
slow. Another thing that I think a lot of people might not sort of appreciate, beat the other guy.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's close enough
Yeah.
that on that given night they can catch him, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say, again, I'm not saying this is the case, but let's say Tom Aspinall is not as good as John Jones.
Yeah.
And John Jones will beat him 9 out of 10 times. If the other one is
that
that
one,
one, that's the one that
That's
lasts
it,
forever.
you know, and then that's it. You're done. You
And
know
that's
what I mean?
everyone's perception.
100%.
Listen, you see top guys like you see their comments like about like the elite of the elite fighters. He weren't that good. Oh, really? You weren't that good. All right. Says you working in the post office.
Yeah, I know.
Because you know more than the
I know.
experts, obviously.
I know,
Right?
I know. It's like when people watch football as well. One in, and you know.
You see, here's the thing. That's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'll tell you why. Because relating to football, firstly, it's a team game, so it makes things a bit different.
Yeah.
But also, if I belt a ball at you and you control it perfectly, and I bought a ball, a professional footballer, and it pings off his foot, you could do it better,
Right.
but you're not a better footballer. But also at the same time, people are knocking the level of a footballer. It's not so personal.
No,
You know?
I mean-
Oh, he's useless fighter. I could do him.
Yeah.
Oh, could you? Do you know what I mean? Like football, but also football as well. If you stepped up at a level and played on a pitch, you'd go very quick. Oh yeah, these guys are good.
Yeah, exactly. And most people will never put themselves to that test to
Have
actually
you ever
fight.
sparred with a professional fighter, been in front of them, and just like watched them move?
So, boxer.
So you know.
Yeah.
So you know. As
Yeah.
soon as they start moving,
Yeah.
it's a bit
And
different.
like genuinely, I felt like I couldn't touch them.
And that little step out, and it's like.
Yeah. And even like in jiu-jitsu, like guys that, you know, like I've competed and stuff, again, I felt like like the amount of times that I would get submitted, you know, in one round, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This
And
is
striking is more clear in a lot of ways. Why? Because if let's say you're a beginner at grappling, you get on the mat, you can't really tell the difference between someone who's a purple belt and up. They're all going to do whatever they
gonna be
want
pretty
to you
good. Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
difference between purple belt, really blue belt, but let's say purple belt, just to make the point, like purple belt versus elite level black belt, if you're a complete beginner, it don't make no difference.
Yeah.
It really doesn't.
100%,
Whereas
yeah.
striking, you could still get in a tear up with someone who's sort of mid-level.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
like a top level guy might just step off.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like, and then just ping a jab in, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like your whole world's caved. You can see levels a
Yeah.
bit different, I think, in boxing and
100%.
striking. But like grappling, yeah, if you're in there with a half decent grappler, as a beginner, I'm talking about, right? I'm not talking about if you're a blue belt and like, of course you can tell the difference between a purple belt and elite level.
Yeah, you know
But
some fundamentals.
A beginner, you're not going to know any difference.
No. It all just feels like you're getting crushed.
In fact, you might be more confused because
Yeah. God, this purple belt crushed me more than the black belt.
black belt's losing absolutely no effort,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You get the point.
100%.
This has
Ollie,
been good,
it's
mate.
been
I
good,
appreciate you
man.
having me on.